Welcome to part two of our beer and tariff discussion. You could catch the first half over on my YouTube channel, Rod J. Beer Ventures YouTube channel. We kind of ran out of time, so I have a few other interviews that are going to be here. You could listen to the entire audio portion with all of the interviews coming up tomorrow on both my feed and Rod J. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Ray Stout is the executive director of the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild. Now, Ray has been on my solo Beer in Front show numerous times, and I'm delighted to talk to him today on this Beer Media Group collaboration on tariffs and beer. Ray, thank you so much for coming on today to talk about something more serious than our usual conversations.
Well, beer is serious business, so I'm happy to talk about it.
Yeah. I've reached out to a couple breweries here in Illinois, and I don't want to name them, but I received a text message from one saying, "This is going to hurt."
I think that analysis is dead on. As an industry, this is an industry that's built on very slim margins, right? And so, which are even slimmer after the pandemic and exacerbated by inflation. And so, while this used to be a business of quarters and dimes, and it's now a business of pennies and nickels, right? And so the way that you build your share of the pie is through expanding your distribution network. But you know what you need to distribute beer pretty widely is aluminum. Right.
Yep.
And so that's a pretty tough double-edged sword there.
Between the aluminum and steel tariffs in place, the Canadian tariffs are on again, off again. Who knows from the time we record this to Tuesday when we air it? I'm sure it'll change a couple more times. There's also talk of a European Union tariff starting next month. So breweries are looking at a 25% increase on key components of what they do, whether it's malt, hops from Europe, aluminum, and steel. I mean, yeah, it's definitely going to hurt.
It's most definitely going to hurt, and let's channel our inner Donald Trump here for a second. Like, let's buy everything from America. Well, cool, but there's not enough supply to meet the demand, right?
Yeah.
There is not enough aluminum production to meet the demand. And, most notably, there's really two kind of can players in the world, right? There's Ball and there's Crown. And Crown is historically, I believe, kind of a U.S. manufactured only. But, what for small brewers, partnering with Crown Cans is just unobtainable because the minimum order quantities are so substantial, right? And so, that leaves us with even fewer selections. And, where Canadian companies have really fit in is kind of that niche market for the small manufacturers and meeting those demands because, both Ball and Crown are able to say, hey, unless you want a truckload of cans every couple of weeks, we're not interested in doing business with you.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that was a few years ago that they upped their minimum orders. And, unless you could get a conglomerate of 3 or 4 breweries plus a place to store it all, it's just not feasible for a small business.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, yeah, you're right. The purchasing power can be combined, but where the heck are you going to put a truckload of cans? So, if you've been in any of these breweries around the state of Illinois, we're working with pretty tight quarters by and large. And so, unless consumers are going to sit on pallets of empty cans in their tap room, there's nowhere to really put these things.
Well, you mentioned razor thin margins, but just here in Illinois, according to the numbers that I saw from the Brewers Association, and you might have more updated, we have 16,000 jobs, more than 16,000 jobs just here in the state. 457,000 jobs across the country. These are, I mean, not all of them, but a lot of these are at risk now.
Without a doubt, right? And so these small businesses are making really tough decisions. And, I'll tell you that it's even harder when we have leadership in Washington changing their mind every 35 seconds, right?
Yeah.
And we want to be able to give our employees some kind of like job security and job certainty that, we're really unable to do. There's no industry out there right now, probably besides some of the more well-funded and potentially corrupt ones that are able to weather 25% swings in the costs of production without, making significant cuts to other costs. And right now, breweries are really looking at what are the cost drivers, and besides just making the beer, it's keeping people employed. And you're right, 16,000 jobs is that magic number right here in the state of Illinois. And the World Beer Institute recently put out a great study that says one brewery job creates another 4 to 5 jobs up and down the supply chain. Right. And so those trickle down to artists, those trickle down to can manufacturers, those trickle down to unionized truck drivers, and everything in between.
Yeah, I mean, the people that work at bottle shops, liquor stores, people that host podcasts. I mean, everything that is going to be affected by this. Normally, like I would say, just, hey, reach out to your local politician, your congressman, your senator. Something tells me this isn't going to work this time. The people making these decisions aren't listening. What do you think, or what do you suggest that, consumers like me do?
I, while sometimes reaching out to your legislator and writing them a nasty message is cathartic in a variety of ways, but I really do think our leadership in Washington needs to hear us, right? We look at Illinois as like, oh, it's a blue state, nothing matters. But once you get outside of Cook County, you start looking at the letters after the names of these representatives. There's a fair amount of Republican leadership here in the state of Illinois, and those folks need to hear from consumers. Those folks need to hear that this is going to affect my business. Those folks need to hear this is going to put people out of work. Those folks are going to need to hear, like, my 30 pack of Busch Light is going to cost $2 more, right? And like that's the kind of stuff that I think helps change hearts and minds, is making these stories local and show the impact on not only consumers but the local communities in whole.
Now, yes, you mentioned, I mean, outside of, Cook County and maybe the collar counties, Illinois is mostly farmland. It's what, 76% of our state, I think, is farmland. It's the number one soybean producing state in the country. We produce the number 2 amount of corn in the country. I talked to a malt house yesterday, and they were saying that, barley is more of a winter crop. We talked before we hit record here how you said that the soil's not really great in the state for barley. Do you think there's any way that, maybe we could start growing some of this, or it's just not feasible?
So, I mean, there's a couple of problems that come along with trying to grow barley for malting. Number one, you need the right kind of terroir, right? You think about grapes, you need the right soil, you need the right climate, you need the right everything to grow that. And Illinois just doesn't check all those boxes, right? You'll see some of the northern states do a really great job. And who does an excellent job is Canada. And so, while again, we hear people saying, oh, just buy American products, there's not enough production in the United States to meet consumer demand. And so, number one, you have to grow it, but number two, you have to malt it, right? That's an entirely different process that, is mostly focused around areas in which the crop is readily available. And so, you're talking about growing it in one place, chucking it to a malt house, and then trucking it back. That adds substantial costs and time into the supply chain that no small business is really able to weather right now. And so I think what we don't talk about enough is kind of the geopolitical climate which affects beer. Europe got most of their malted barley from Ukraine, right? And so you think about all those giant breweries out there, that's been shut down. And so they're consistently relying more on, products from Canada. So that, it's not going to hurt Canada at all for them to say, sorry, United States, we're not dealing with you here because we have these customers that are willing to ship it across the ocean for twice as much. And so, it puts our manufacturers in a really tough position, especially for the small local ones.
Yeah. Like, looking here, there was only one malt house, a commercial malt house here in the state, one called Mammoth Malting out of Thawville. I know Southern Illinois University has a nice program, but there's really, the infrastructure is not in place here in the state to, get malt out to breweries. Yeah, it would be great. Half acre or somebody like that could just go down the street and pick up enough 2-row to make a pail, but it's just not feasible to do here.
No, just both from a climate and a kind of an infrastructure standpoint. We're not able to flip that switch. And you know, I'll take it one step further is that there was substantial money allocated in by previous administrations for doing more research on kind of climate and drought resistant malt streams and barley streams. But that is kind of also under attack. And so, if we're looking at this as like kind of the total microcosm here, right? You know, all of the inputs of beer are getting more expensive. The research that is needed to make these products in America is being cut. Where are we winning here? And the answer is nowhere.
Yeah. Also, have you heard anything? I know there's been a lot of cuts, and I don't want to, I don't want to make this too political, but there's been a lot of cuts across government agencies. What about the TTB? Has there been delays in getting even new beers and new beer labels out from breweries?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a couple of things coming down the pipe in the federal government right now. Is number one, yes, across the federal government, agencies are being asked to cut back on their staff. And TTB for your listeners that aren't kind of necessarily familiar with kind of the government side of beer, is the entity that's in charge of approving ingredients and improving labels and to make sure they meet the requirements set forth in the federal government. And while those label approvals have historically been done in a matter of days to week, we are worried that slowing that process down, especially with a product like craft beer where there's not a lot of room to kind of store it and keep it while the label's being held up, will impact our members negatively. And so that's a real concern that we're dealing with.
Well, let's not make this all doom and gloom here. I know we have Illinois Craft Beer Week is coming up in 2 months. Any news on that?
Yeah, so super exciting news. And so Illinois Craft Beer Week is going to kick off May 9th. We're moving beer under glass to a indoor outdoor location like it was in previous years. We're moving to the rooftop of the Harris Theater. And so that's a wonderful location for folks who've never been there, overlooking Millennium Park and the skyline of the city. We also have our Pint Day coming up, and so I know you recently talked about the what's going on in Colorado, but our glass is probably the coolest one I've seen ever, and so I'm excited to get that out there and get that image and list out to members to start participating there.
I know I've got a swap. I've talked to a couple different states. They're like, all right, you get me an Illinois one, I'll send you one of ours. So I'll be hitting up local breweries to grab my glass to reciprocate.
Absolutely. No, I encourage you to do so. And, again, that Pint Day for us and for other guilds is not only you get a cool glass and maybe you'll get like, a $10 pour in a beer or whatever the brewery works out. But, part of those funds come back to the Illinois Craft Brewers Guild to keep the good work going on our side, both, lobbying at the local, state, and federal levels to make sure that breweries are appropriately treated by our leadership.
Yes. Well, Ray, I appreciate you taking time out. This is kind of an abbreviated talk from what we normally have, but we have a couple other guests that we want to get on as well. I do appreciate you taking time out today, and I'll definitely look forward to seeing you at Beer Under Glass.
See you there. I hope to see everybody who's listening there too.
All right. Take care, Ray.
All right. Bye, Dave.
Go. Riverbend Malt House out of Asheville has been putting out quality malt since 2010. From your base malt to Pilsner, Munich, rye, and everything in between, Riverbend has you covered. I'm happy to be joined by Sean Wagner from Riverbend Malt to get the perspective of a United States-based malt company. Sean, thank you so much for taking time out today.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me on.
Did you have all of this on your bingo card for 2025?
Well, it's been a little crazy ride for the last few years between pandemics and, everything else. So you never know what to expect, but, we do our best to try to keep our ears to the ground and follow trends. And obviously this has been a topic du jour for the last several months. So just waiting to see how it's going to really play out.
I was almost a little leery to talk to you because I talked to Brent back in August, and like a week or two later, you get hit with a hurricane. So hopefully your weather's good next week. If not, I guess you could blame Chicago. How is the area? Is it pretty much recovered, or still a lot more work to do out in Nashville?
There's still more work to do, but overall, yeah, the area's come back together. Tourism is really down. So if anything, Western North Carolina really needs people to come out, especially since the weather is starting to change, get a little nicer. Please get out, go visit Western North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, go hit the local breweries, the local distilleries, the local restaurants. They need it. Tourism is down 70% in Western North Carolina right now, Nashville specifically. So, anything you do to, stop in and say, hey, and the breweries are all open. Seats are available.
All right.
Fill them.
Is the Orange Peel still open?
I think they are.
All right. Cool. Yeah, that was the one spot my wife and I hit when we were there a few years back. So, I mean, we did, talk to Brent before, but can you give people the basic lowdown on what you guys do at Riverbend and your company?
Yeah, so Riverbend is a local malt house. We started in 2010. Brent and Brian co-founded the business. We've been working with local farmers, primarily North Carolina, Virginia, some Tennessee, pretty much any area that we're selling in. We work with local farms. We bring that material back to Western North Carolina, Asheville, and we do all the malting processing, and then we ship direct to our customers from there. So we sell to both brewing and distilling customers.
What other types of products do you have for breweries and distilleries? I know I mentioned a few of your malts, but what else do you have at Riverbend?
Yeah, no, it was a great little soundbite there. Use that for a commercial. Thanks, Dave. So we've got a full line of base malts for the brewing world. Pale malt, pilsners, a whole Munich line. We've got some crystal malts. We have a honey malt. We've got rye, wheat, oat, corns. So a whole variety. I think we're 23, 24 different products right now in our portfolio. So our focus area is pretty much anything up to that 50 SRM level on the malts. So,
well, I saw just today on Instagram that you posted that there's a collaboration with a brewery called Full Steam, and they have a Reset ESB made with Riverbend Regenified malt, which I think is really awesome. How did that collaboration come about?
Well, so Riverbend, we are the first Regenified certified malt house in the country. It's just a kind of renewable farming technique. And we definitely got on board with the program very early on. And our partners and friends over at Full Steam are absolutely 100% dedicated to their ag program. And we, got Regenified certified. They followed suit. And the Reset ESB is the first product that is going to be fully certified. Now, we've got some of our other customers using the Regenified Southern Select in some products, but Full Steam definitely got on board, got certified, and the Reset ESB is the first product out there. So we're very, very excited about that one.
Yeah, that looked really cool. So I'll have to talk to my family that lives out that way and have them send me over a 4-pack of that.
Yeah, well, John and Sean do good stuff. So great team over there. I'm excited to try it myself.
All right. Well, check out Full Steam if you're in the Asheville area. Now, depending on which part of the country you live in, purchasing craft malt from a company like yours, it not only helps U.S. farmers and the company, which, let's face it, we're all in business to make money, so it helps the company, but it also reduces the time and the carbon footprint involved in getting the product to the customers.
Oh, absolutely. So, we talk about local. We're very much committed to that whole program, right? So we started in 2010 there in Asheville, sourcing local barley, local raw products, doing the malting, and we've built our business on that. Today, most of our farms are within 300 miles of Asheville in Western North Carolina. So we bring everything back. Not only is it, supporting local farms in the local state, but like you said, that carbon footprint is a lot less because stuff isn't going on a truck, sitting in a truck for days or weeks, coming across the country, burning lots of fuel. In most cases, it can leave one of our farm partners and be back in our malt house within a couple of hours.
Oh.
And then we process everything. And in most cases, a lot of our stuff is only weeks old by the time it goes back out as a finished product to our customers.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, the breweries, they're getting fresh product. That's fantastic.
That's correct.
It's still early in the game. And as we're talking on Thursday, the 6th of March, now the Canadian tariffs are on hold for a month. So who knows where this is going, but have you heard from your contacts any talks of American farmers switching from products like soybeans or anything else to barley or wheat for beer and distilling?
Well, we're constantly talking to new farm partners as well as we continue to grow as a company. As we continue to expand and do more and more and produce more every year, we're constantly bringing on new farms, getting our farmers to give us more acres. Most of the barley, though, that is grown in the Southeast, Avalon, Violetta, Calypso, they're winter barleys. So that means they're going in the ground later in the year, and the harvest is going to be somewhere around mid-May to mid-June, depending on the region where they're at. In a lot of cases, that provides that farm a second or even third cover crop throughout the year that, they may have just thrown something down through the winter just to, recycle the soil. But in this case, now they've got a crop that's going to be profitable for them. And, we work with our farm partners, throughout that growing season to make sure everything's on track and they can optimize their yields. So we're definitely seeing some of that. And again, they might grow soybeans during the summer and grow barley in the winter. So
Perfect. That's a win-win. If there is, and hopefully there is, a pivot to more of a United States malt, especially with base malt, will your farmers, will they be able to satisfy that demand, do you think?
yeah, we're constantly expanding. I mean, just this year alone with Avalon taking off and using it more in a lot of our other core products, we've already got more acres of Avalon growing this year in anticipation of more sales this year. So we're kind of trying to stay ahead of that curve the best we can, and constantly, growing that. So we're going to do everything we can to keep growing, but we definitely have lots of acres out there, lots of capacity, between us and then other local malt houses as well. So,
All right. Well, that's cool. Yeah. I know I'm going to talk to another one soon, probably tomorrow. The one thing in Illinois, we do so much with soybean and corn. We really don't. There's like one local malt house here in the state of Illinois. So hopefully that'll increase, or hopefully we could get another one here soon to satisfy the Midwest market.
right.
Like, we were talking about being in business, and farmers, they're business people too. Do you think their margins will be enough for, them to plant the product, for you to produce the product and still be at a competitive price point with Canadian malt?
Well, so we work with, us specifically with Riverbend, we pay a little bit higher than most for our farmers. But again, we work with them. We're trying to maximize our yields, where we try to be a good partner. We pay our farmers more. We pay our staff more living wages. So we're very much, malt with a mission. So we want to continue to make sure that this is obviously beneficial for them to continue growing a product that we can use for our customers and source all of that. So, I think as we continue to bring on more farm partners, they're definitely seeing the value in working with us and working with growing products for our industry.
All right. Well, that's cool. Like, if a brewery wants to get a hold of you and get a hold of Riverbend, how would they do so?
Our website is riverbendmalt.com. And if you want to get a hold of me directly, you can get a hold of me. It's Sean, SHAWN, at riverbendmalt.com.
Excellent. Well, Sean, I thank you so much for taking time out. It was really nice to learn a little bit more about, Riverbend and the process that you have there. And best of luck to you and Riverbend in these crazy times.
Well, I certainly appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, Dave.
Okay, take care, Sean. All right, Bottles and Cans has been around since 2012 and is one of Chicago's finest bottle shops and liquor stores. From beer and wine to spirits and THC beverages, they have you covered. They have 2 locations, 6401 North Central Avenue and the one I'm at now, 4109 North Lincoln Avenue. I'm happy to talk today to Eric Blythe, the buyer and general manager at Bottles and Cans. Eric, thank you so much for talking today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I mention this location on the podcast all the time when I pick something up and when asked for Illinois Brewing Magazine. Both you and the staff here, which is the store I'm most familiar with, are second to none, have helped me out immensely with suggestions, everything like that. How did you get started in the alcohol retail business?
This is actually my first job in the alcohol industry. Yeah, I've actually been at Bottles and Cans coming up on 12 years now.
Okay.
So I was the very first employee here, and yeah, have been here the longest, of course.
Oh,
So,
that's awesome. Yeah, this is a great spot. When most people think of jobs in the brewing industry, they always focus on breweries itself, but there's so many other jobs associated with alcohol. You have printers, you have truck drivers, construction workers, transportation workers, and people like yourself in the retail business. How concerned are you if prices start going up?
I mean, we've seen the trend recently, as well as we've seen the trend over the last 5-10 years of prices have gone up. Yeah, is it concerning? Yeah, sure, a little bit, but it's something that people can adjust with here and there. If things go up $1 on the shelf, it's not super concerning. When things go up $5 on the shelf, that's when people start to really second guess things.
Yeah.
I mean, you can kind of look at egg prices of when they're 99 cents a dozen or $1.99 a dozen, not that big of a deal. When they're $10 and $12 a dozen, people start to second guess if they want to get a dozen eggs.
When they're more expensive than the
Wait.
rotisserie chicken.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's the same thing with alcohol, whether that's beer, wine, or spirits. When things go up in price, yeah, it's people start to look at their wallet and look to see if they really need that 6-pack or that bottle of whiskey. Sometimes it's a no, let's hold that off for next week. And yeah, we all have to kind of roll with the punches here and there.
Yeah.
So
For years, it seemed like $9.99 a 6-pack was the breaking point with people.
Mhm.
And, we've long blown past that with
Yeah.
4 packs of craft going for, $15, if not more.
Mhm.
What do you think is that magic number that, people are like, I'm going to pick this up, or maybe I'll get something else?
I mean, to be honest, it varies person to person. It depends on your income, actually. But yeah, I feel like the average price right now is in that like $15 or so. I and and so I feel like when beers get above $20, people really start to second guess if they're really wanting to do that. But I feel like what used to be $9.99 is now $15.99. And and yeah, that's just kind of the way things have gone over the last few years with grain prices, hop prices, aluminum prices, trucking, everything like that. So
Yeah, I remember like 10, 12 years ago, before all of the buyouts, you'd see Ballast Point sculpin for $14.99
yeah,
when all the other craft at that point, I think, was still around the $8.99 mark.
yeah,
And it's like, do I get this? But you did, because it was good.
yep, exactly. Same thing with zombie dust.
Yeah.
Like that was one that it was always a little bit more expensive, but people were like, "Oh, it is really good. I want to spend a little extra
Yeah.
on that beer."
Yeah.
Mhm.
I remember driving there, and they would even have signs out front, no zombie dust. I'm like, you brew it right here. You don't even have zombie dust
Exactly.
at Three Floyds.
Mm-hmm.
The past couple of years, we've seen craft breweries come out with their version of a macro lager. And you have companies like Montucky Cold Snacks and Garage Beer that seem to be doing well. Do you see more of that if breweries are cutting back a little bit?
A little bit. I think that's also a trend that we see customers that are kind of gravitating towards classic styles. Sometimes they want just that quote beer flavored beer, and they want to be able to drink 5, 6, or 10 of them
Yeah.
in a day. And when you have these IPAs that are sitting at 7 or 8%, it's not easy to drink 6 of those. Where when you have a 4.5% light lager, you can drink 6 of those a little bit easier.
Yeah, you have what, Cold Time,
Mm-hmm.
Three Floyds has their version. Just
Yep.
mentioning Three Floyds, that's really good.
Yep. Surly just came out with a brand new one as well. Yeah, it's a fantastic option.
Marijuana became legal in Illinois in 2020, and there was concern that that was going to take away some alcohol business and revenue. It was hard to judge with the pandemic and everything else,
Mhm.
but a lot of companies are now coming out with THC beverages that you carry here. How have those been doing?
They've been doing very well, actually. We've expanded that section here 3 or 4 times in the last 6 months. It's growing tremendously.
Yeah, and it's good to see. I mean,
Mhm.
you have a lot of Illinois breweries. You have Mars, Twisted Hippo has one.
City has one. Maplewood has some. Yeah, there's many.
Well, with their
Hopewell.
Choom line, I know there's just,
Yeah,
it seems like that's really growing in the state, which is cool.
yeah, it is. It's really fun to see. And it's something that people have really gravitated towards for whether that's health reasons, whether that's just kind of a fun alternative to beer or alcohol. Like it's just a really interesting thing to see. But yeah, they have grown tremendously over the last few months, year or so.
Well, you and the team, and I'm going to trust your crystal ball because you named the place Bottles and Cans back when everybody was still putting in bottles. They were in cans back when you started, maybe Dale's Pale Ale, but not a lot.
Yeah.
What do you see as the next big trend in retail alcohol?
I mean, the THC stuff is the biggest trend right now. Non-alcoholic stuff has really grown as well. I think once the bubble kind of bursts a little bit with the craft breweries, we'll start to see these breweries really start to hone in on a lot of really fun things, and I think craft beer will really start to bounce back because it's definitely slowed a little bit over the last year or two. We've seen that bubble burst from the 2010, 2012 rapid growth in breweries that we saw early on. And I think those breweries are really going to start to kind of come back and really bring some fun stuff. We've seen a big growth in agave, so in tequila and mezcal, in wine drinking as well. And so, yeah, we'll start to really see a lot of stuff like that continue to grow.
Not only a beer place. So if you think this is just a place you could pick up beer, no, you have a great whiskey selection. You mentioned agave, tequila. You have a wine selection. What else can people expect when they come into Bottles and Cans?
Yeah, I mean, we've got great craft beer. Like this store was originally built on craft beer, and we've grown and we've adjusted, and the neighborhood and our customers have really wanted more wine and spirits and more alternatives. And while we still have great craft beer, we have a great wine selection and a great spirit selection that are focused a little bit more on small producers, and we try everything that comes in. We want to make sure that it's great product, it's great packaging, it's good prices, it's stuff that people are looking for, and we want to make sure that we're bringing in product that's good for the planet as well. That like we've got organic and sustainable wineries, we've got agave that's coming from farmers that are getting paid well, and things like that. And so we're paying attention to where things are coming from.
Yeah, that's good. So if you're either one of their locations, once again, they had two locations, 6401 North Central and the Lincoln Avenue one at 4109 North Lincoln Avenue in the North Center area. Eric, I thank you so much for talking today. It was really good to get the perspective of somebody that doesn't have a long beard and work in a brewery.
Thank you very much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Cool. Thank you.